Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something hard, something you may not want to hear. If you find yourself begging for love in your old age, it is not simply the world that has failed you. It may be, and I say this with the deepest sense of responsibility, that you have failed to build the kind of life that compels love to stay near you when you're no longer young, strong, or useful. Love, true love, isn't a debt the world owes you for having survived. It's not a pension you receive for just sticking around. It's something earned. It's something cultivated over decades, like a garden that requires relentless tending. And if you neglect it, if you lie, if you manipulate, if you push people away in your pride or your self-pity, then don't be surprised if no one is there when you cry out for warmth in your final years. Love in old age is earned, not owed. This simple phrase contains within it a profound challenge, a paradigm shift in how one views relationships, responsibility, and personal growth. To truly understand it and to live in alignment with it requires a deep, often uncomfortable process of introspection. If you take nothing else from this extended reflection, remember this: love is not a reward handed to those who merely exist. It is a testament to who we have been to others over the entirety of our lives. Imagine a life not lived, where relationships have been postponed, deferred for a more convenient time. I'll invest in my family when I'm more successful, or I'll be there for my friends when I have the time. These rationalizations can become a habitual refuge from the messy, demanding reality of emotional investment. But time doesn't wait. Moments slip through your fingers while you're busy planning for some future day. What matters isn't the day you think you'll make everything right. What matters is the one unfolding now. Love, in its truest form, is built minute by minute, word by word, action by action. If those moments are delayed over decades, you may find that when you finally look up, the people you hoped would be there have moved on, emotionally or physically. Love evaporated quietly while you were elsewhere. When you reach old age and find yourself alone, the first step in bearing witness to this is radical honesty. Instead of asking the external question, "Where is the love?" you turn inward and face the equally scary but necessary question, "Where was I in all of this? Did I show up? Did I really show up?" Responsibility for one's place in shared life narratives, even if it means acknowledging failure, is the gateway to authentic change. If you asked yourself in your youth, "Can I be trusted? Do I speak my mind with both truth and compassion? Do I discipline myself so I can be dependable?" Those questions guided you toward building relationships of substance. Their absence means you took the easy path, and easy paths tend to lead to isolation. Building love takes more than warm wishes or sentimental promises. It takes effort, vulnerability, and often the courage to say hard things. Did you take the time to understand your loved ones as they changed over time? Did you listen when they talked about their fears, disappointments, ambitions? Or did you use their speech as mere background noise, thinking your own concerns more pressing? People know, even subconsciously, when someone invests in them. Not just in grand gestures, but in the mundane, the boring, the everyday. A father showing up to their child's school event, even though he'd rather be home. A friend making the same phone call every month, rain or shine. A partner who, after years, still laughs at your jokes, still remembers the little hurts and addresses them. These things compound into loyalty. They are the mortar between the bricks of affection. Sometimes we reach old age having prioritized our own comfort, our own career ambitions, our own pleasures. We became accomplished people in some domain, but emotionally distant in the areas that truly matter. We can lose sight of the fact that relationships are never static. They require tending. They are living, breathing organisms, and like any organism, they corrode if left unattended. People change, needs shift, contexts mutate. Your spouse, your children, your friends, they are not who they were 20 years ago, yet you often continue to treat them as if they were. You hesitate to ask the tough questions, to negotiate conflict, to recalibrate boundaries. Instead, You assume that the foundation laid in earlier years is forever sufficient. This error of complacency is the silent killer of love over decades. So, if you reach old age with loneliness as your constant companion, it is rarely because people chose to abandon you. More often, it is because there was nothing to anchor them in the tumultuous flow of life. In youth, we may assume love is unconditional, but as time marches on, we realize love is conditional, not in the mean sense, but in the sense that it responds to what you offer. If your connection to another is thin, based on convenience or habit, its roots rarely run deep enough to hold when the storms of life come. Death, illness, loss, change. These are storms we all must weather. But they reveal who has foundation beneath them. Herein lies the sobering message. If you want love in your old age, you have to start earning it now. No more waiting for the right time. No more telling yourself that earning provides will somehow nullify emotional absence. You must balance competence and care. Yes, you have to bring your game, work your job, pay your bills, plan your future, but you also have to bring your heart. Your heart is not some nicety to deploy when you have extra bandwidth. It's the currency of love. And if you keep budgeting it, putting it away for later, you will find one day that you've spent it all and no one inherited the legacy. What does it look like to earn love, practically speaking? It looks like showing up consistently. It looks like apologizing when you hurt someone. No excuses, no justifications. It looks like keeping your commitments to your spouse, your children, your friends. It looks like valuing the person across from you enough to prioritize their world, not just your own. It looks like humility in your successes and generosity in your failures. It looks like intimacy earned through trust. It looks like mercy. It looks like sacrifice. Fundamentally, it's not about perfection. It's about trajectory. If you realize you've slipped, don't despair. Begin to reverse the course. It begins with honest conversations. Admit to those you care about where you lost attention or drifted away. Decision follows recognition. And decision leads to change, but change doesn't happen overnight. Change is boring. Change is repaving the driveway quietly, day after day. And that consistency is love speaking louder than any grand speech. Now, there are deeper currents beneath this. Everyone wants to believe they are still lovable, to be seen, to be felt, to matter. But if you've abandoned that belief in your own goodness, if you've withdrawn from others, that longing becomes muted. You no longer ask, will they love me? You ask, am I even worthy? But worthiness isn't a gift, it's a skill. And love is the application of that skill, honed through time, testing, failure, recovery. Worthiness is built by continual recommitment to being someone who contributes emotional value, not just taking it. In old age, physical decline may erode the forms by which we once earned respect, professional achievement, vitality, independence. And that's precisely why the substance of your love, heritage matters. Relationships founded on genuine attachment, not convenience, on forgiving transparency, not stoicism, are the ones that survive. So that when weakness comes, and will come, you still have a world around you that understands, cares, and remains present. They stay not out of pity, but out of conviction, rooted in everything you gave them when you were strong. If you haven't built that world, then what do you do now? You start at 70, start at 80, start. It's harder, sure. Years of neglect take time to reverse, but you still have time, measured in seasons of effort. Make the first move. Write that letter, make that call, schedule that visit, admit that you were wrong. Ask them to teach you what you lost. Make your vulnerability your weapon in turning toward love. Finally, don't mistake the absence of dramatic gestures for failure. Love is shown in the mundane, a daily good morning text, an honest conversation over dinner, the act of remembering what they love. Accumulated over months and years, these small acts compound spectacularly. They become the roots beneath aging bones, the reason people cross the room to sit beside you at 80, the reason a hand is offered when your legs give out. So understand this, not as a judgment, but as a truth. Love in old age is earned, not owed. If you've neglected the earning, the begging won't help. Instead, begin today, even if there is no audience, no applause. Begin with courage, begin in small ways, build quietly, steadily, and one day, when your hair is white and your body is frail, you may look around and find yourself surrounded by people whose presence is not a courtesy, but a testament to a life lived in love. Not because you demanded it, but because you earned it. Suffering does not entitle you to love. This is one of the most misunderstood truths about human relationships. It runs counter to our instincts, to our expectations, and even to our cultural narratives. We are taught that those who suffer deserve compassion, that pain itself is a kind of virtue. But the hard truth is this: while suffering may invite sympathy, it does not automatically earn love. Love, true love, the kind that endures across years, that shows up when you are weak, sick, and dying, is something earned not by what has happened to you, but by how you've responded to what has happened to you. It's easy to assume that just because life has been hard, others should love you more. Maybe you've lost parents early, endured betrayal, known the ache of poverty, or carried around lifelong illness. These are heavy burdens, but carrying them doesn't mean you become a magnet for lasting, unconditional love. The world doesn't work that way, and neither do people. Human beings are drawn to resilience, to dignity, to integrity, not merely to pain. Suffering may attract attention, but love is a response to how you bear that suffering. Everyone you know suffers, your spouse suffers, your children suffer, your friends, your neighbors, your colleagues. They are all walking around with hidden wounds. Some carry grief for lost parents. Others suffer in silence through depression or anxiety. Many live in fear, insecurity, or disappointment. Suffering is not rare. It is the shared soil of the human condition. But what grows from that soil? That's the defining factor. Some people allow suffering to transform them into better, kinder, more empathetic beings. They become stronger, not bitter. They become more patient, not more demanding. Their pain is real, but it is processed. It doesn't leak out destructively. They take responsibility for their healing, even when the world offers no help. And when others witness this kind of strength, quiet, unglamorous, grounded strength, they are drawn to it. They trust it, they love it, not because it is flashy, but because it feels safe, because it demonstrates that love offered to such a person will not be wasted. On the other hand, some people turn their suffering into entitlement. They believe that because they've been hurt, they now deserve perpetual understanding, infinite patience, unquestioning loyalty. They weaponize their trauma. Every act of selfishness is excused by a story of how someone else wronged them. Every failure to show up for others is reframed as the consequence of their own pain. And for a time, people may indulge this, out of pity, out of guilt, out of compassion. But eventually, love turns into exhaustion. Because love cannot live where responsibility is absent. Love needs reciprocity. It needs the giver to feel that the gift is received with gratitude, not demanded as a right. What often goes unnoticed is how much suffering can distort perception. When you are in pain for too long, you begin to interpret even kindness through the lens of distrust. You suspect motives. You push away intimacy because you assume it will turn into abandonment. And when it does, you feel confirmed. See, I was right. They always leave. But you don't see your part in driving them away. You don't notice the walls you built, the venom you sometimes spat without realizing, the expectations you placed on others without offering the same in return. In this way, suffering can quietly become a justification for behaviors that erode love's foundation. Nowhere is this more evident than in families. There are aging parents who expect their children to love them fiercely, regardless of how they acted when those children were young. They say, "I suffered to raise you." Yes, perhaps, but did you show up emotionally? Were you present, loving, respectful? Or did you use your suffering as a shield, expecting gratitude in exchange for obligation, not affection in exchange for affection? Children, remember, they may sympathize with a parent's struggle, but that doesn't always translate into love. Love is not the same as duty. It's possible to care for someone out of duty and still not feel love for them. And that's what happens when suffering is used to demand love instead of earn it. This truth applies in romantic relationships too. One partner may go through immense hardship, mental health crises, financial ruin, personal failure. And initially, the other may rally around them. That's love. But if the suffering partner refuses to get help, refuses to change, and begins to take the partner's love as something guaranteed, cracks begin to form. Love starts to rot when it is taken for granted, especially when suffering becomes a weapon that says, if you really loved me, you would put up with anything. That is not love, that is manipulation. And it's a form of self-destruction disguised as need. The deeper tragedy is that this pattern is often unconscious. Most people don't sit around planning to use their suffering as leverage. It happens slowly. You're hurt, so you withdraw. People come close, you lash out. They retreat, and you interpret their retreat as rejection, which reinforces the original wound. It's a loop. And unless you become deeply honest with yourself, unless you pause and ask, am I pushing away the very love I crave, you will stay in that loop forever. Breaking that loop means doing the one thing suffering hates, taking responsibility, not for the pain itself. Many times you were a victim, but for what you've done with that pain. Did you let it control your life? Did you use it to avoid growth? Did you wear it like armor to avoid intimacy? Taking responsibility means saying, I've suffered, yes, but I won't let that suffering make me impossible to love. It's hard. It requires facing parts of yourself you'd rather ignore. But it's the only way to reopen the channel through which love can flow again. There is a quiet power in the people who have suffered but do not announce it with every breath. You meet them and sense something deep, something weathered. They have scars, but they don't lead with them. They lead with kindness, with presence. They are generous not because life was easy, but because they know how precious warmth is. These are the people who transform suffering into service, who turn pain into poetry, grief into gentleness. And these are the people others want to love, not out of obligation, but out of admiration. Contrast that with the person who becomes bitter, cynical, self-absorbed. They are alone not because no one ever cared, but because they've made it impossible to care without being drained. Their suffering dominates every conversation. Their wounds are excuses, never responsibilities. Their loneliness becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And at the end of life, they look around and ask, why does no one love me? And the answer, though painful, is clear. Love was invited, but never allowed to stay. To be lovable, even after suffering, you must retain the ability to see others, to care about their experience, to give as well as receive. That's the paradox of love. It's sustained not by need but by mutual recognition. You see the other person as they are, and they see you. Not just as a wounded being, but as someone still capable of love, laughter, generosity. If you reduce yourself to just your trauma, then you reduce others to caretakers of your emotional state. That's not a relationship. That's a transaction, and love cannot survive in transactional space. This doesn't mean you need to be happy all the time. It doesn't mean you shouldn't talk about your pain. On the contrary, vulnerability is vital. But there's a difference between vulnerability that seeks connection and vulnerability that demands compensation. The former builds love, the latter depletes it. What's the path forward then? First, recognize your suffering, but don't wear it as your only identity. You are more than what hurt you. You are also how you responded to it, how you chose to keep going. Next, practice gratitude, not in a superficial way, but as a discipline. Gratitude reminds you of what still exists outside your pain. Then, be curious about others. Ask them about their suffering. Learn their stories. When you recognize that everyone is walking through fire, You stop expecting special treatment for your own burns. Finally, cultivate presence. Love grows in the now, not in the replay of old wounds or the fantasy of future validation. Suffering doesn't disqualify you from love, but it doesn't entitle you to it either. Love is earned through how you carry your pain, how you offer something of yourself even when it's hard, how you stay connected to humanity despite everything you've lost. Love is earned when you choose dignity over drama, healing over helplessness, contribution over consumption. If you want love in old age, not pity, not obligation, but love, you must become someone others want to love. Someone who has suffered, yes, but who has used that suffering to deepen their empathy, expand their spirit, and build a life others feel drawn toward, not repelled by. That is the real work. It's hard. But it's worth it, because in the end, no matter what you've endured, the only love that lasts is the love that was welcomed by your effort, not demanded by your pain.